Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Triple J Trail Mix podcast. I don't know why I did that weird accent. It was not even very good, but that's okay. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started with tonight's episode. Tonight we have a very special guest star with us. You may remember him from last week or last episode, Mr. John Michael. Say hi, John.
Hi.
He's here. We'll get to talk with him a little bit today about some stuff that he posted and some questions for us about the survival of the theater industry and movies. And so it should be a very exciting podcast, exciting topic to cover tonight. So I hope you all enjoy.
Thank you very much, JT. That was wonderful.
Thanks. That was definitely not nearly as eloquent as your guys, but I'm totally flying by the cuff here, so it's whatever.
You're good. You're good. Sweet. So to start things off, I know that we wanted to delve into this topic because I know, John Michael, you're an immense film aficionado. You're both a fan and a creator, and just to explain your journey. So how did you come to be interested in film in the first place, and then how has it grown so far?
Well, we want to talk about the first place. So literally when I was 4 years old, I went to see Monsters Inc. with my grandmother.
Yes.
Oh yes.
We saw it in theaters. It was my first time in a theater. And I remember as soon as we walked out, I looked at my grandma and I said, I'm going to make movies. And so that's really where it started. I had enjoyed watching like Peter Pan or other Disney movies at home. But that was really when it clicked that I had to make the things that I enjoyed. So that's why even today, I was supposed to be filming today, but that unfortunately didn't happen. We'll reschedule. It'll happen. It'll happen. Ever since then, I've been making short films. Started making short films in middle or high school, freshman year in high school. And yeah, it's just what I love. I love watching movies. I love making short films and studying how they're made. That's sort of my story with this. It's still not really. I'm not like a top tier film director yet, but I'm confident it'll happen.
That is the key. That is the key word right there. Is yet.
Yeah.
You will get there. I am confident in
that. Thank you.
Yes. So go ahead and lead us on, John Michael. So what do you want to talk about with the theater experience and the theater industry for us?
So first off, I want to kind of give a recommendation for another podcast. So not a competition, but Empire Podcast released an episode with Quentin Tarantino and Edgar Wright, and literally it's just 3 hours of talking about theater experiences while they're quarantined. So
that's like a dream. Oh my god!
Yeah, it's so great. But what that made me think about was really the future of theaters, and I'm a big enthusiast of going to the theater, watching a movie in the theater. I think that's important for the experience of watching movies. There are certain movies I would even say, if you haven't seen them in theaters, you haven't seen them.
Great.
So I'm all for theaters staying forever. But I think what we're seeing right now is a change in the film climate. Just with streaming services being such a big thing now, and Premiere Access, where you can watch a movie that's in theaters from your home.
Yeah.
it's becoming more accessible. But that accessibility isn't just because you have access to that movie doesn't mean you have access to the theater experience that you would have. So like the
Definitely.
experience of watching.
Unless you're rich.
Well, even if you're rich, let me give this example. So when I saw Jojo Rabbit, in theaters,
You were rich.
I was not rich. I'm not rich. But when I saw Jojo Rabbit in theaters, there was one scene. I'm not going to spoil it, but I think everyone who's seen it will know what scene I'm talking about. There's one scene that's really like it's a shocking, tragic scene. Like you're not expecting it at all, and no one even has to say anything. But when you're in the theater, you can feel everyone, kind of having the same reaction of like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And like, I mean, you can get that experience. You can feel that way on your own, but there's something about knowing that complete strangers are feeling the same thing that you're feeling. That's just such a magical feeling for watching a movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my rant on why theaters need to stay. But what I want to kind of talk about is kind of the future of theaters, and also like I was saying earlier, we have Premier Access now and other things like that make it more accessible. What do y'all think? Well, first of all, what are y'all's thoughts on the theater experience? Like, is it something that needs to stay? Is it something?
Well,
that
also,
replaced?
going back to my rich comment,
Yes.
my friend who does music stuff, he had
Yeah.
a friend who installs rich people's sound
That's nice.
audio system,
That's cool.
and he says that it's way better than a theater system because like they do buy like the higher tier than the theater does, and he
Mhm.
says that audio is so precise. Like he was watching a demo that the guy had, which was one of the, I think it was Born Ultimatum. It was the one
Uh-huh.
with Jeremy Renner instead of Matt Damon. Like when the missile went over the cabin, like he could hear the missile coming before like you could even see it, and he felt like the sound was so precise and like so great that when it flew over the trees, like the camera saw it fly over the trees, like he thought it just flew over his head. Like it was so good. So it's
Wow.
like there is the fact like if you're rich, then you kind of do get a better experience than if you go to the theater because it's also at your own house, and you only have to deal with people who are there. But at the same time, going to theater is like a normal experience for most people. So I was just kind of being funny, but at the same time, kind of not being. I was kind of serious.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I actually, I went to the theater for the first time since well before COVID. Actually, when everything shut down just a couple weeks ago. And when
Yeah.
I tell you the immense joy that I had walking into that theater, it was incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt so, for lack of better terms, magical. It was just like,
Yeah.
I've had so many great memories of so many great movies just over the years with different people, different friends, my wife, all, different experiences. And it just all kind of culminated. And, I personally think that there's, regardless of sound quality and picture quality and all that, there's nothing quite like the experience of going to a movie theater to watch a movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's
It very much
also,
is the ritualization of it.
Yeah.
There's also the fact of like, you get to go and you get the snacks that are expensive, and you get to sit in people's trash when you. No, I'm just kidding. But it's also fun to go like as an outing, like or for dates too. So it is.
Oh, yeah.
What is it, a social thing now rather than just like going to see the movie.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess,
Yep.
what John Michael was kind of saying.
That's what I'm saying, but it's
It's
also
like-
it's,
Versus like just watching the movie on like premium access versus like
Sure.
a social event or type of thing where you actually go to the movies.
So is it replaceable by Premier Access and other things?
Well, the experience isn't. Because
Right. So why isn't it replaceable? because so let me give the example of and I 100% like I don't think it's replaceable. But let me give it like a sort of a rebuttal.
Playing the devil.
Sure, yeah. So say like date night, for example. If or just seeing it with friends, you can have friends over and watch a movie at your house. What makes that what is it that allows that to like why is that not what is able to replace the theater experience if you could have friends over and maybe even have snacks?
Well, it also depends on the movie too, because like my first movie I saw after COVID was Godzilla versus King Kong, I think, and that movie is way better with the big screen than with like your normal home television.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that does come into effect too, but I guess you could also argue that like the big screen itself is just a drawing factor since you don't get that at your house unless you're rich. So, you could argue that, I guess, but I feel like there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I feel like it's a better trade-off going to the theater because I mean, like the concessions, they're there. You can get them or you don't have to, or you have that one friend that sneaks snacks in and all that kind of stuff. And so you have that, but then also you're not paying that much to go see a movie that's on a huge screen with good sound.
Yeah.
And also it's just you're in a different place than you normally are in your life, and so it makes it all the more special and all the more memorable.
And every time you go to the theater, you associate those experiences with that place, so it builds it on itself, kind of.
Yeah.
So that place has almost become the place it is because of the experiences we associate with the place.
Yeah,
true.
Psychological stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then I think that also, like, it well at least especially for, I feel like for Disney, like not specifically Disney, but for Premier Access and those other things. But right now it's just been Disney because they're the only ones that are charging for it. But
I guess Max a little bit.
No, they don't charge.
HBO Max is completely free on the day of release.
Wow.
But yeah, it's crazy. So, but Disney is the only one that I've heard of so far that has been charging extra for their movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like since like the way where I am, like with Disney Premier Access, it's only a good bargain or trade off if you're having a group of people over to watch it with you.
Yeah.
For like at least for the price and what you're getting for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the price like for the theater, like you get the big screen and everything. The price for at home, you just get your little rinky-dink computer or TV, and then you also don't get to own the movie. So I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay like me going to the theater to see it and everything associated with that, and then buying it on DVD or whatever is all going to add up to getting it on Premier Access.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I feel like I feel like that's a better trade-off to go to the theaters. And then I mean, again, on top of that, it's just a great experience. I mean, like a place where you're going to be, where you're here, a place when you're at your own place where you are most of the time, according to our brains, things that are more monotonous or repetitive or mundane are going to be lost in the fray later on in life. So the more you switch things up and make things different, the more memorable they are, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that just reinforces that point. That's my thought.
I was also thinking about that kind of thing too, though. But like, if you don't clean your room, like say like you've got a bunch of stuff that you need to put together or you need to put up, or like say you have like your laundry out, like when you're going through your room, or like also if your bed isn't made, when you go through the room and you see everything, those things are like subconsciously shouting to your brain like, you need to do these things, you need to do these things. And so I was wondering, maybe like if you make your bed or like you tidy up your room, it's good because your brain isn't subconsciously being barraged with the things you need to do, and you know you need to do them, but you're putting them off. And so, and then like there's also a thing where like there's a Chinese thing where if you for like the new year they clean they clean everything and they reorganize it or whatever in their room to like get out the bad energy or whatever, which is kind of a superstitious thing. But it also is kind of like if you get your room better, like you get your room cleaned up and organized in preparation for like a new beginning or a new year, mentally you're not seeing all of those things that you need to do or the old things that were there, and you're kind of like your brain isn't having to have those things always like reminding you, your subconscious. Because I mean, if you're conscious, you can just push them aside and you're not feeling it. But maybe like this is just something I was wondering about, like that your subconscious is seeing those things. And that's why if you have like a messy room or something, you don't make your bed, you're less organized, or like you don't, you have more. It feels like more stress a little bit, maybe. So I've been hearing things like that, and then like so like with this, if it's a new place, then your brain is in like exploration mode, or like not you're because like if you're at your house, you get into a habit and you're always stuck in your habit.
Yeah.
Even if you try to get out of it, like you're still gonna eventually probably revert to the old ways, your old ways, even if you like unless you're like super driven about it. And so like if you go to a new place, your brain isn't gonna be like trying to pull you back in to like getting into the swing of things where you are at your house. Because like say at your house, maybe you'll watch stuff at the table while you're eating. Like you might not do that for every single thing, but for most things you do. And so like when you watch a new movie, it may just be, oh, I'll watch this while I'm eating. And then it just becomes like your normal everyday routine where you watch something while you're eating, and you don't associate a unique experience with that movie. Versus if you go to the movie theater and you're surrounded by new people, new things you don't usually see, and all these different things, and then the plus a big screen, louder audio, or more better quality audio, or whatever, then your brain is going to be constructing different pathways or whatever, and it's going to be processing things different, and so that might shape your reality or like shape your viewpoints differently than if it was at your house. And so like those are just things that I've been thinking about recently, like theories or whatever. Like I don't know if they're true or not, but it's just things I've been thinking of. And it was like, it's funny that this came up in this
That
thing.
is,
So
that is a good thought. I like that. That reminds me of like the times in high school when I was taking like the SAT or the PSAT and stuff like that. There would be some guys that would show up in full suits, and it was because they said that if you show up in something like that you don't usually wear, your mind is already like primed for something that it's now in a higher working order, and it's not like in that if you can imagine like your usual mind is like I guess kind of in its usual relaxed groove. It's not firing on all cylinders, but if you go in to this not so normal event with not so normal dress, then it even boosts your mind to to kick into high gear.
Interesting.
So so to bounce off what you were saying, Jackie, with going to the theaters and it being a special experience, and it's as opposed to being here at your house where you can get into a groove and it becomes less special. Is there a point at which going to the theaters becomes I guess part of the groove and it becomes less special? Like where is that line? Where do you think?
well, I mean, because like if you watch stuff at your house, that's like it depends on how I guess you would compare how often you watch things at your house versus how many times you go to the theater. Because like back when you had the movie and you were watching movies like almost every week or every day or something, like it would be maybe a better like it would be easier to compare it from that than to compare like the COVID, like when the theaters aren't open that much kind of thing. So like maybe like if you think back to when you were doing that, like would you be able to say like did the movies lose their what is it, their awe or like their sparkle like when you went that many times for different movies, or would it be hard to say?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it makes me think of like, maybe the theaters have like become more. I think. Oh, here's something. I think that they're going to become more special.
I do too.
Yeah, it may be at the cost of, like, since not many people are going and they're not going to make a lot of money, but I feel like soon going to the theaters is going to be like a not really a hipster thing, but more like something to do that is like what's the word? Not antique, but vintage. It's going to be like a vintage event,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
how people have like record players and stuff like that, which not like the mass population don't. It's in, they're being in touch with a later time. I feel like the theaters were a commonplace thing right when they there was like a glory age of people going to the theaters all the time, and because that was the only place that you could see films. And then you got the introduction of the home television, and then you got the introduction of VHS tapes, and then DVDs, and then Blu-rays, and then now streaming. Like it's bringing everything to your fingertips all the more, and so going to the theater is becoming more and more of an exclusive, not not your average Joe kind of movie seeing experience. So I feel like it's going to be interesting to see how the industry balances that. Hopefully they can use that to their advantage, and not, but at the same time not lose money.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and I want to touch on that a little bit more in just a minute about how I think the industry is going to, or how I think the industry should change their methodology and as far as keeping how they keep theaters. But before I do that, I do want to mention like what you're saying about like the thing having how we have movies that are fingertips now. Like it's not this far away expensive thing. So like we can just literally click a button and we are watching a movie. I think I think there's a unspoken fascination that humans have with things that aren't at their fingertips, and I think that that's kind of what makes like what JT said, that's kind of the magic of it.
Well, and also just real quick, going off of that and kind of what we were talking about before, like if you compare, like if you ever watched like a series with your family or you regularly watch something with your family, if you compare that to like you just watching something by yourself, then you can even see like would you prefer to watch something by yourself or like go back, or at least for us or for me now, like I can't go and watch something with my family, so it's like it would be more special to go and watch it with my family versus just watching it by myself. And so it's kind of like the it's a similar type of magic because you're with your family watching it, or with it was something you did a lot, or like together or whatever, but it's like it's a different kind of magic, and so it's almost like you could compare things that way too, like, and then you could even compare the family watching something with your family at home versus with your family at the theater. But that was just something that popped in my head. It was like that's kind of like, because there's just like if you look at it as objectively watching something, like, oh, I've seen that movie or I've seen that movie, versus like how you watched it, like there's the different experiences you have, like watching it by yourself, watching it with a friend, watching it with family, watching it with people like that are movie critics and you always watch stuff, or watching at the theaters, things like that. But what were you saying?
Well, yeah. Basically what I was saying is, like, since we don't have, when we're at the theater, since we don't have everything at our fingertips, kind of the difference I've noticed is that when I'm at home, when I know that I have this movie at my fingertips, I'm more likely to pause the movie and come back to it later. And I think that is a really, that's a really good way to kind of lose that tension.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so when I think when we're watching something in the theaters, there's so much tension to, especially when we're watching like a suspenseful movie. Like I'm thinking in particular, Tenet, which was
Yes.
one of the big movies that kind of brought back movie going to some extent. So with Tenet, you don't even want to take a bathroom break. Because it's so
You're gonna feel another kind of tension if you try to hold it in.
yeah, exactly. You don't even want to take a break from it. When you're seeing it in theaters, because if you miss anything, you may have missed the whole movie. Because it's just everything is so tiny details connected, like mind-bending stuff. And so with Tenet and with other movies, you don't like it's like you have to see it at once. And when you're in the theaters, it gives you that feeling of like there's something important about seeing it all at once. Like it's almost like it's I'm trying to think of the word. It's more like vital, I guess. Like it's do or die.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and I think that's something we lose with home entertainment. But yeah,
No, definitely.
yeah. One thing I
So
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say you had mentioned something about like an idea that you had for the industry of maybe handling the future.
Yeah. That's kind of what I want to go into next. Yeah. And this isn't a dead set idea, and it could have been thought of, and it could maybe they scrapped it. But I was thinking I thought about it a little bit before, but I really put a lot of thought into it today, and I don't know if it would work or not. But I want to propose the idea of charging different prices for different movies. And so what I'm getting at, here's what I'm kind of getting at. So when you and before I say anything, we're still capping the price at like $15. So that it doesn't get more expensive. But for argument's sake, let's talk about food. So if you go to McDonald's, you pay like $5 because it's not a complex meal. It's not it's not like there's a bunch of unique ingredients in it that are just so expensive or like creative that you would pay a lot of money for that. But if you go to this if you go to some fancy restaurant where they've poured their heart and souls into this culinary experience and putting all these unique ingredients into it, and like a lot of them expensive ingredients. In that case, we call that gourmet, and with those gourmet foods, we charge more. So I'm kind of thinking about how the film industry could look at that, and in particular with theater experience. And one of the things that I thought about was how, and I'll use Space Jam as an I'm sorry, Jackie. I'm sorry, Jackie.
I mean, I wasn't like a super big fan of it.
Okay, well, I'm about to take a dump on it.
It's okay.
But so with Space Jam, me and Sam saw together. Me and Jackie saw together. I wasn't a fan, but that's okay. The new Space Jam, the 2021 Space Jam with LeBron James. So I mean, I gotta be honest. That's not a very. It wasn't a like super artistic or groundbreaking experience. I feel like that. I feel like that was a pretty basic film, and that's okay. That's what it was intending to be. And so with films like that, or even I could give other examples like Boss Baby or whatever. Those types of movies, I think, should like be seen as sort of the fast food of the theater experience. So, in other words, they would charge less for that because there's less artistic or like there's less artistic or philosophical or whatever you want to talk about.
There's less meat.
There's less meat to it. Yeah, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But then if we talk about like, let's use Pulp Fiction as an example. Or let's see. Well, we could even use Joker. I feel like. For more recent, Joker is a that's a very artsy movie. There's a lot. The use of music is very intentional, and it was. I think, from what I understand, it was kind of filmed to the music. The soundtrack, from what I could be wrong, but I think the soundtrack was chosen first, like classical music, and a lot of other stuff. That's
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there's a lot of artistic value to that, and there's philosophical value to asking important questions about like how does society affect sorry how does society affect mentally unstable? How do the mentally unstable affect society? And all the so it's in that sense it's a much more complex and artistic film. So that would be more of our at least be more towards the gourmet experience, if not the gourmet experience. Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think so. With that one, I would charge more like $15, or at max. And I think it could go different ways. Like I think we could also talk about like independent films, like.
And I just thought,
Yeah, go ahead.
Because that kind of system would push for more quality movies rather than just cheap cash grabs.
Yeah,
So
it would.
It would actually be really nice.
And I think one of the things to think about is with the lower budget indie films. So say like I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, a lot of them you wouldn't have even heard of, just because they're low budget indie films. But I'll use this film as an example just because it exists. But there's a movie called Prospect, which is like an indie sci-fi film, done extremely low budget. But it's a very artistic film. It did well at the box office. I'm pretty sure it did. Maybe I'm wrong. But let's say that movie, when it releases, because they can't, because it's a lower budget film, they charge less on like opening night. But let's say that movie does better over time, like more people watch it, then maybe that price can increase. And then I think that would be kind of a good way to let the indie lower budget directors or filmmakers, whatever, kind of build their career and build how much money they're making. And I think it would also make opening nights a much bigger deal, just because if you're paying less for an opening night, then it would be like that's like the big thing, which I think Sam was talking to me about earlier.
Yeah.
Jackie. Yeah. But what are y'all's thoughts? I mean, maybe that's the right word. It's not, but
yeah. So just to see if I'm tracking with you. So your
Sure, yeah.
your distinction and your ranking of like the pricing tiers would be based on like I guess the fine quality of the movie.
Yes. I feel like it couldn't be as simple as that though, because I feel like there's
Okay.
also yeah. I think as far as the studios go, yes.
Okay.
But once we bring the indie filmmakers in, it gets a little more complicated, and that's when I think
definitely.
the indie filmmakers would probably have to charge less at first. But if their movies do well, then then maybe there's more demand for their movies, so they can charge more.
The other thing though too is that if you have the review board or whoever decides what the price is for the movies, it could end up like Rotten Tomatoes, where people are like,
That's a good.
"Oh, I don't agree with them. It should be."
That's a good.
But then again, it's like,
And that's what it
like,
should be.
oh,
It should be based on the actual statistics of like how much people are actually paying to see them.
yeah. But also at the same time, it'd be like, "Oh, well, I don't mind if they said it's a lower quality movie because it means I have to pay less," kind of thing too. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's an idea.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it has to talk to it, but I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I feel like the way I could see it working is probably if they release the movies at a set at a blanket set price and then shift it based on how it does. That could be something, because then you can start to manipulate it based on supply and demand,
Yeah.
basic economics kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then that opens it up though for manipulation by the general populace.
And that's the scary part. So there's no doubt that there's manipulation in the film industry,
well,
especially with the
it's
studios
kind of like the stock market.
and stock market. Sure. Yeah. But definitely at least the film, like the studios, like Disney and whoever, like there's a lot of everything's kind of strategic business. Like I was just talking to him about, I forget the name of the actor, but that main actor for he's gonna be in Dune, and he's gonna be in the French Dispatch as well. I'm blanking on it. He's in like Little Women and some other movies.
Yeah.
It's not Peter.
Is it Timothy Chalamet?
I think it is.
Okay.
The guy with the pointy nose and long hair. Let me look
I
it
think
up.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
yeah, Timothy Chalamet. Okay. So Timothy Chalamet, I don't know who's doing it. His agents, the studios, whatever. They're definitely trying to make it so that he will win an Oscar. And the way they're doing it is they're releasing. This is a whole nother. This is a rabbit trail, but I think it's a good rabbit trail.
Oh yes. Boing boing. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Yeah. So Timothy Chalamet, I think I'm saying his name right. His either the agents or the studios are trying to make it so that both Dune and the French Dispatch release in the same month. In fact, they won't release either one until they're able to release both, because they want him to win at least one Oscar. That's just kind of what's been going around from all the Hollywood people, and that's how they've been planning the release dates. So right now they're both scheduled for October, I think, or fall, sometime in fall. So yeah, there's definitely there's manipulation there. So it's still a tricky. I mean, you'd have to deal with that. But I think if it's sure, but I also think with something that is so like with Rotten Tomatoes, it's based on opinion. Supposedly, it's opinion or someone paying them enough to say what they want them to say.
That is true.
But with money,
True.
money is such a specific, like currency is such a specific item. Like you get an exact amount of money for whatever you're selling. I feel like that makes it less, like there's less room for bias. There's less
True,
room
very
for
true.
there's less room for that corruption because it's just the numbers are the numbers. And so yeah.
Another thing that they probably think about is just that if the movie does well and they charge more for than the other ones, that may also, I mean, and this is just where the whole change, they keep changing and stuff like that. But
Right.
if the one movie becomes charged more to go see, maybe people might not lean towards that way. They might be like, okay, well, we don't have the money to go see that yet, or we don't see it at all. We have the budget only for these other movies that are
Yeah.
cheaper, I guess. So
Yeah.
it could steer people away from it, but at the same time, that's where you have to try and find that good point.
Yeah. And I also think it's a part of it's going to be, the curious film, like people like me who are just curious film goers. Sometimes I just see a movie, I'm just intrigued by the mere existence of a movie. And a lot of times, it may not be seeing them in theaters all the time, but I saw Minari last year. I literally drove 2 hours away from where I live to go see a movie called Minari. And just because I was curious about the movie, and I wanted to see it, and no other theaters near me were playing it. So there's always going to be those curious people who just want to give something like that a try. It's a small indie movie, like I was saying. So in this scenario, it would have at least at first, they would have charged less at first in this scenario.
Yeah.
But if that movie ended up being nominated for Best Picture of 2020, so that so there eventually was demand for that movie. So I think if we, and I even say with Pulp Fiction, Tarantino had only directed one movie before Pulp Fiction, and it did all right, but he wasn't a well-known director yet. When Pulp Fiction came out, there was no way to anticipate how great it was going to be. So in this scenario, sure, it'd be at the lower price range. But once Pulp Fiction becomes like one of the greatest movies of at least the 90s, at that point, then you got to start charging more, and so I think that scenario just kind of works. It works in favor of the smaller indie films, but also can work in favor of the studio films.
True. I like it.
That's just my idea.
Nice.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yep.
But what
Disney,
about
Warner Media, if you're listening, then you should take note.
What happens if it gets popular after it's released in theaters?
That is a great. Well, that can't be helped, but that's a really, because that's beyond the theater experience.
That is true.
But
that's where you start manipulating prices of DVD and streaming sales and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's where you start putting putting the movies back in theaters again.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
And one thing that what Drayton just said, they do charge different prices for different movies for like DVD and Blu-ray. There are certain movies that you'll find in the $6 bin, and there are certain movies that you'll just find for like $20 or $30.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like it's already, in a sense, being used for home entertainment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
True. Yeah. That is an interesting point. Dang. Well, cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Sweet. Are there any other thoughts, Jackie? You have any other thoughts you want to share?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Man, that was great. Cool.
Thank y'all so much for letting me talk about that, because I literally just thought of that today.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no problem, bro. That's awesome. That's so good. Cool. I'm gonna try and transition into our wrap-up segment. John Michael, if you're not familiar with it, so like this bit we call Word of the Week.
Okay.
And so it's usually just me as being the linguistics guy. I find random weird words, and then we just kind of talk about its meaning and its different uses and stuff like that. So it's just a little bit of an educational experience. So yeah, today this episode's word of the week is widdershins. Do y'all know? Do y'all have an idea of what widdershins means?
No.
No.
Okay. The official definition is it's another way to say something is moving counterclockwise or something is moving in the wrong direction.
Is it winter or winter?
Yeah. Like it's spelled WIDDERSHINS. Widdershins. Yeah. Yep. Thing. Okay, so it comes from the early 16th century, from Middle Low German, Vedesines, and from Middle High German, Videsines, which is from Vida, which means against, and Sin, which is direction, in those languages. And it's the second element. It was associated with the Scots scene, the Scots word "scene," which means sun. So that's why it was had to do with counterclockwise direction. And it is an adverb.
Oh,
So it wouldn't be like a noun. It wouldn't be a noun or an adjective or anything. It's an adverb. So the what is it? So like the rabbit was running widdershins.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you have Reese Witherspoon, but then you have Reese Withershins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reese
Wonderful.
Witherspoon.
Yep. So good. Cool. Well, that is the word of the week. And also, I just so going from that, I'm just going to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much, John Michael, for joining us for this second episode of your appearance.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Is there any way that people can search you up, follow you, anything that you got going on that you'd love that people to support?
Yeah. So I may be changing the name to my YouTube channel. So maybe you may have to update this later. But right now my YouTube channel is John Michael Wall Work. So if you search that, you'll find me. But
Nice.
yeah, that's how
We can link your page.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We'll link your channel in our description.
Cool. And yeah,
Be sure. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but yeah, the best way y'all can support me is just watch my short films and
Give him money.
sure, give me money. I don't have any way for you to do that right now. So I should probably put that up.
Oh goodness. We are now going to start a GoFundMe for John Michael.
For John Michael's existence.
John Michael.
Yes. Well, cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the JJJ Trail Mix podcast. Again, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Please stay tuned for more episodes. And again, we're on TikTok and Insta for more content, and we will see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.